Hey, everybody. We are going live, and I'm seeing that people are joining us. That's excellent. I sent out a last minute email to everybody who was on my list, and I hardly ever do that, but based on the questions and the news, and boy, there are people who are scrambling over the last 24 hours, and they'll continue to scramble and try to make, real split second decisions, and of course, we're all hoping for the best. And ironically, this Hurricane Florence is happening almost exactly to the annual anniversary of Hurricane Harvey. And ironically, I think my little comment thing is hiding my face. And ironically, Hurricane Harvey hit my town really hard. So I wanted to share not only from my experiences, but I also wanted to pass along maybe some tips and advice that, you might not find everywhere. It might take someone who's actually lived through it to say, hey, wait a minute, that electric skillet, that's going to become your new best friend if your house is flooded. So I'm going to be sharing some of those things with you. And I am seeing Lisa, and good evening from you. Or to you, and Rhonda from Maine, and I'm seeing people from just different parts of the country. Are any of you that are joining in? Hey there, Bonnie and Lisa in Florida. So far, do we have anybody who is expecting to encounter Hurricane Florence? All right, you're coming from all over. Hi, Cheryl Wilmer. Nice to see you. It's good to see some familiar names and faces. Some of these people have taken classes of mine from Preppers University, and others have, hey, Sandy, speaking of Preppers University alumni, Sandy Holbrook has taken, I think, at least 2 of the classes from there. So Chrissy and Susie, fantastic. So Susie, you're in Virginia. Do you think that you're going to be dealing with Florence? Hey there, Jennifer. One of these days, my family is going to get out there to visit you there in Florida. My husband and I were in Disney World back in February, and I thought about you while we were there. It was just one of those really impromptu trips. But anyway, very nice to see all of you today. So you're coming from all over, and here Helen from El Cerrito, California, she's waiting for the big quake. The best thing about the whole concept of survival and prepping is that it just overlaps every which way. So when I was in Phoenix, hurricanes were the last thing on my mind, but there were other emergencies that happened, including, intense heat and heat waves that would just go on, forever. And Lisa from Thatcher, Meredith, hey, everybody, it's nice to see you. And one of the things I have for you, I have to send it out via email. My assistant is putting this list together right now, even as we speak. And I asked one of the Facebook groups from my town, Kingwood, for their best advice. If they were going to say, if they could sit down with one of these moms or families from North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, that whole coastal area, and then inward, hey, Linda Loosely, it's so nice to see you. I remember you setting me up with Pinterest a long time ago. Thank you. I've missed you. So they're giving their best pieces of advice. My assistant is compiling all of those. And the last time I checked, the advice was still coming in. So I'd really like to glean as much as we can from their experiences. So it was a little over a year ago. In my town, we knew that Harvey was coming. And those of you that are waiting to see what's going to happen with Florence, and there are 2 or 3 other storms out there, including one that may make its way into the Gulf. And we may be seeing, rain or hopefully nothing more than that. But, all of us, we're just hoping. But anyway, we were all getting ready for Harvey. And it was my first hurricane. And I was thinking, okay, I wanted to be, I thought, okay, I need to be nervous. Should I be nervous? Am I supposed to be nervous? I was a little jittery just because I didn't know what to expect. And our house is surrounded by huge pine trees and oak trees. And for me, my worst case scenario was one of those falling on top of our house with one of us, being injured or, having our house. Hey there, Sharon from North Carolina. Good to see you. But I will never, ever, ever forget Harvey coming in and we're experiencing rain, and then the rings of the hurricane come, and so you'll have less rain and then just a real gusher, for a long period of time. And then, as that ring passes, then there's a little bit of calm, maybe some sprinkling. And it was during one of those times that my family and I packed up in our car, and we did what, they say you're not supposed to do, but we were like, okay, what's going on out there? But I have a memory I want to tell you about, because it epitomizes to me the importance of you becoming a survival mom. And we had our emergency radio on. Our power went out a couple of times, but fortunately for us, it wasn't, for hours or days or weeks. But I remember hearing on the radio an emergency broadcast, and it said, will you and your family, it's urgent, climb to the top of your roofs and wave a white t-shirt. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is getting serious. And then they said my town name, Kingwood. Wow. I don't know if any of you, Robin, you're from Pasadena, so you know pretty much where I live. And just the reality of that, it wasn't some neighborhood, some ward down in Louisiana. It wasn't, some place where, that kind of stuff happens to the people. It was my hometown. Get on your roof and wave a white t-shirt. So one of the reasons I wanted to get on here live with you, and this is being recorded as far as I know, is because I don't want any of you to be that person who panics and all you can do is figure out how to get on your roof, and hopefully there's a white t-shirt handy that's not in the laundry basket, right, that you can't get to. So here in Kingwood, everybody that had any kind of a boat, a canoe, a fishing boat, a bass boat, anything at all, they were coming to the rescue of these people. Amber from Pearland, you know what I'm talking about. You remember, I'm sure. So when you are facing an event like this, it could be a wildfire in California. It could be, a devastating tornado. In some cases, these kind of emergencies, they are of a more personal nature. It could be finding out your hours have been cut in half, or someone has lost a job, or there's just a devastating diagnosis from a doctor. So all of those kinds of things we really can be prepared for. So my goal is to work with you, whether it's through my blog or my Facebook pages and groups, the book, whatever, to help you move from that panicked person to someone who is confident. So going back to Harvey and myself, I don't know I was like, should I panic? Because I wasn't panicked. I mean, we had water storage. I had, 3 or 4 stacks of water bottles, and I knew I had plenty of food storage, and I had a solar oven if I needed it, and a little rocket stove. We were ready. In fact, I just, because everyone else was panicking, I was like, well, everyone else is panicking. Maybe I should too. So I ran to the grocery store, and sure enough, no bread, no water bottles, no milk, no eggs, no chips. What is the deal with chips? If any of you have ever prepped and, gotten ready for a hurricane, what is it with chips? That was just amazing to me how empty the chip aisle was. But it was just a surreal feeling that in the midst of all of this running around and panic, and people on my community forum and different Facebook pages, they were scared. And I was like, maybe I should be scared, but I really wasn't. So you can go, here's a comment I got today from a lady on my Facebook page. She says, my husband says, I need to pack an emergency kit, but I have no idea what to pack. And at that stage, if you are at that stage, you know what it's like to feel vulnerable. If you have family members looking at you and saying, okay, what are we supposed to do? You need to get an emergency kit. Where are we going to go if we have to leave? And there you are, your back's to the wall, and you look at those eyes watching you, and you do feel scared and vulnerable, confused. And that really is the first stage of anyone becoming a survival mom, anyone. I was there too. I guess the final stage of that progression, as you learn what to do and you have these different preps, put in place, is an email I got. No, it was a message on one of my groups. We are survival moms. A lady named Emily left this message for me today. And it was like, wow, because this gal is well on her way. She's not the confused, vulnerable person, with that first little starting stepping stone. She's well on her way of really being that survival mom. And she says, I've been thinking about Lisa and survival moms all day. I'm in Virginia and the reports are blowing up about Hurricane Flo. We have a house in the Outer Banks and well, that is what it is. But here at home, the sheriff's departments and state agencies are shooting out so much information. Get prepared, have on hand what to do, etc. The public needs this information, but it's a lot to take in. If you can imagine, in the flurry, the adrenaline's going and everybody in the family and neighborhood, they're panicking. Relatives are calling you, you're going to be okay. And you're, I think we are. But Emily goes on to say, if you haven't been educated and already prepared by the survival mom, I can see why those not ready become panicked. While I pray Flo blows herself out before bringing damage to our area, I feel at ease with my supplies have been ready for years. We're stocked with what we need. I've done what I can, and I'm not having to rush around at the last minute, despairing at empty grocery shelves, etc., because I am a survival mom. That really is well on the path, a far distance from the people who are scrambling last minute. And sure as anything, when you know what it's like when you're scrambling and you're scared, you're going to forget something important like batteries or baby formula or diapers, something important. So let's dive into some strategies that I think are going to apply to you wherever you live, because sooner or later, all of us are faced with that emergency that maybe we thought in the back of our mind, that happens to other people. That's not going to happen to me. Hey, Rhonda, you got my list. I hope my list from yesterday is passed on. I actually, on Twitter, I tweeted every single one of those hurricane prep steps. So, and I have a couple of documents for you all that I'm going to be emailing you tomorrow. Okay, so let's get started. And by the way, even if you're at that stage of confusion and that fearful feeling of vulnerability, it doesn't take long to move along those stepping stones until you can be and say the same thing as Emily said. And that is, I'm not scrambling. I really feel okay about this. So a couple of things, a couple of tips that maybe you might not have thought of. But if your home is in a danger zone, you don't know what you're going to be coming back to. So here in my town, people who were living just every day, very calm and stable, structured lives, like maybe most of us or all of us, they realized that there was no going home, because when they left, their home was filled with 4, 5, 6 feet of water and more. One of our friends, our kids' rowing coach, he actually had to get on the top of his roof and get into one of his own rowboats. And he's a strong man, professional, he'd been a professional athlete. And he said he had never felt so in fear of losing his life as he did trying to get into that boat with all of the swirling water in the dark. So know that when you leave, you may or may not have a home to come home to. So you know what? When you're doing that packing and you think we're close to the shoreline, or there's always been flooding when there's been a big storm like this, go ahead in the trunk of your car or tuck it in the back of your pickup or somewhere. Put one or two electrical appliances for cooking. You're going to thank me later. For those of you whose homes may have been flooded by Harvey, a lot of people in my town, there are a lot of 2-story homes. And so hundreds of families had to live in the upstairs while they were rebuilding the downstairs. And how did they survive without a kitchen? The electric skillet, the Instant Pot, pressure cooker, maybe a little hot plate. So you might not even think about that, but if you have something like that, just put it in your vehicle. If you end up in a hotel for a period of time, or in some other location where you don't have a full kitchen, you're going to be really grateful that you have that. All right. Those of you with this particular storm, you're going to be dealing with strong winds, as well as possible likely flooding and just torrential rain. Here where I lived, we didn't have so much the wind damage, but we had an awful lot of stuff going on with flooding. All right, so that was really the cross we had to bear during that time period. But those portable cookers of whatever kind, they really will come in handy. On your smartphone, right now, if you have it handy, do a search for the app Zello, Zello. And let me see if I can put this. I think I have a way of putting some comments here, but I'm not seeing it right this moment. But it's just Zello, Zello. And this app turns your smartphone into a walkie-talkie. And it's as simple as that. So if you can set up your own family channel, and people from all over can join in your family channel. Or it's very possible you can do a search for channels and maybe do a search for your hometown or the name of your state and see if you can connect with others. Because in everything that happened in the days and weeks after Harvey, Zello was an excellent way of us just communicating with each other and making sure, for example, for there are people who were very involved with rebuilding and mucking out homes, making sure that you didn't have tons of people all going to one address, with sheetrock. You could kind of disperse and you could delegate. So it really is handy. Zello, it's a free app. It's really easy to learn how to use. If I learned how to use it, so can you. Social media. Of all things, social media was huge in helping families recover, helping families find each other. And again, so Jamie, you use Zello. I did too. I was all of a sudden just overnight, I became a little Zello dispatcher, of sorts. So, but just going back to the thought I had, social media. Yeah, here on Facebook, look up the name of your town, look up the name of your state or your county or something, and start connecting with other people. Maybe your town has an online forum. Here in Kingwood, there are a couple of forums, and a lot of times those are places where you can get up. I'm talking up to the minute, as in like second by second by second pieces of information. There's a tree down on Kingwood Drive, so be careful. You don't kind of get that. You don't get that kind of, up to date, specific information anywhere else. So look for local resources on social media. That actually can be huge. For right now, make sure your electronics are charged. All right, that really is huge. Have you ever really, really, really needed your cell phone or the GPS on your cell phone, and all of a sudden it just goes dead? So get all of your electronics charged. And if there's a power outage, how are you going to charge them? So if you have radio, I use Jackery. That's the brand name of this battery pack that I got. Jackery. We made sure those were fully charged. So there's a mosquito in my house. I live in mosquito country, kind of taking over our backyard. So get those things charged. And this is huge, laundry. Have you ever dealt with a huge pile of laundry and you had to schlep it over to a laundromat or maybe over to a friend's house? Laundry becomes huge. Hey, John, nice to see you. Laundry becomes a huge issue. And for every member of the family, how many, clothing changes do you go through in a week? So you can imagine if your power's out or if you're away from home, laundry's massive. So get all your laundry done right now. So if you are thinking you may have to evacuate or the storm is going to hit, you're not so worried about flooding or evacuating, but there could be power outages. Stay up to date. Do little loads of laundry, once or twice every single day, and make sure that you're starting off this big crisis with clean clothes at least. On my blog, and I don't know that you can really get this in time, but I did a review and I posted it this morning actually for a portable clothes washer called the Lavario. Forget how they pronounce it, but it's on my blog. So thesurvivalmom.com. And you can just look at maybe the design. If you don't want to spend the money for it, you can just kind of look. It's a large bucket, an hour bucket. You put a little bit of soap and water, and then you put clothes in a smaller bucket, and you just kind of plunge it up and down a few times. So, and there's a little video that shows my husband doing that. So, you might want to think about, well, what kind of alternatives could you use? And by the way, if you're thinking of laundromats, make sure you have cash on hand. Make sure you have quarters or dollar bills or whatever they require, because laundromats, you're grateful when you need a laundromat, you're grateful, but it isn't all fun and games while you're there, especially if you have a bunch of little kids that you have to keep track of. Water will quickly become an issue. When there is a big flood, the water comes pouring into the municipal water plants. And so much water comes in that it cannot be purified fast enough when it gets, when it goes out into, all the piping and is delivered to businesses and homes. So very typically what happens is that, the city will call, or the municipality will call a boil notice, or maybe even just say this, don't even touch this water, not for cooking, not for anything. So it depends on what the contaminant is. So make sure right now that you have containers of water. You can, this is on Amazon, but there's something called a water bob. Do any of you have something called a water bob? And it is this big, huge bladder. It's a plastic rubber bladder that you put inside your bathtubs. You fill it up and it holds, I don't even know, 200 or 300 gallons of water. So that is something that can really hold a lot of water all in one place for you. But after Harvey, my kids and I were walking around and driving around and delivering water bottles, delivering bags of ice. Right now, this is the summer. And it's hitting, parts of the country that are still dealing with, some summer heat and humidity, and it can become miserable fast. So something else you might want to pack would be if you have like a wagon, especially those little, those heavy duty wagons, those would be so handy if you had to transport things for long distances. And Jamie, thank you for answering Linda's question. I noticed it and then I thought I'll get back to it, but Zello is not the same as ham radio. Zello operates in a different way, but it's just a smartphone, but it is smartphone to smartphone. So anyone who uses it will have to have an Android or an iPhone. So we're charging all the electronics, we're getting laundry, we're staying on top of laundry. And by the way, stay on top of dishes while you're at it, and making sure there's a water supply, whatever that, however you want to take care of that. And then make sure you have an idea where to go. Now, if you're like my family, you may be getting calls from relatives and family, friends, and saying, hey, if you have to leave, come over to our house. And that is nice because you have some place to go. And you know that they probably aren't going to charge you if it's family, and you're familiar with them. You know how to get there. You're familiar with them, and vice versa. You may end up at a hotel. I know that to this day, believe it or not, over a year later, here in the Houston area, there are still people who are living in hotels, and still people whose homes. In fact, right in my town, there are homes that they haven't even started the recovery project yet. And can you imagine the mold and all kinds of yucky stuff that is growing inside those buildings? Here they had to completely tear down a McDonald's. It had been closed up for so many months. I guess the McDonald's franchise owner, whatever, they just decided tear the whole thing down and we're just going to start from scratch. So this whole process is going to take a long time. I think here in my town, when the flooding first happened, everybody was pretty sure that the recovery would happen quickly, and it didn't. If you think about hundreds and thousands of homes and businesses, buildings of all kinds that become flooded, or they're damaged by wind, they're damaged, just in whatever, the storm damage. Imagine now how many contractors of all kinds are going to be required to get that work finished. And then in virtually every case, they're going to have to be permits. You ever thought about that? I didn't realize my husband has been in construction for a long time, and so he goes through the permitting process, often. But it never occurred to me that one of the reasons that these homes and businesses didn't make more headway had to do with regulations. It had to do with whatever rules were on the books. It had to do with the availability of contractors. And then permits, massive backlog of permits in Harris County. So if your home is flooded in this particular, storm or another storm to come, just know and just tell yourself it may be 8, 9, 10 months before we're back in that home, or longer. Our Sunday school teacher just moved into his home about 3 weeks ago. And so, I think when you know that may be the timeline, you're just a little more prepared for it. Instead of thinking, all right, we have this big crew coming in, they're mucking. And look, we're going to start, we're tearing up the carpet, we're tearing out the tile, kids, it's just going to be maybe a couple of months, by Christmas or by your birthday. Just know it's a long recovery time. And in fact, I think it can take, honey, it takes 5 years for, yeah. In the big scheme of things, it can take up to 5 years for an entire community to fully recover. So I'm just telling you that, mostly just in the back of your mind, just be thinking, if our home is flooded and if we have to go through that long process of recovery, have a realistic expectation. Couple real quick tips, and then if you have questions, I'm going to scroll down and see what you have. But photos, you could do this right now. Just get your cell phone. You can even delegate this. If you have kids maybe 10, 12 years and older, delegate some of this stuff. But go from room to room and start taking photos of everything. Because those of you who may have been flooded in Harvey or some other, similar storm, you know that the insurance agency is not your friend. Okay. So they are going to want to give you the very, very cheapest replacement price for everything. And the more documentation you have right now, the stronger your case will be. And the reality is that if you do go into your flooded home and you can get in there safely, you begin documenting down to the bottles of laundry soap you had, down to the toothbrush holder and the soap dish. And if you buy some kind of expensive premium shampoo, you want to make sure you document the brand. So document. And anything that's portable and of value to you, take it with you. If you live in a 2-story home and you're really not expecting, to be in massive flooding, put your valuables, even, really good furniture, put it upstairs. All right. So that's just on the safe side. Your documents. One of the things let me make a note. One of the things I'm going to have for you via email is a list of all the different documents that you really should have with you. You don't want to have a home flooded or to have some kind of storm damage, and there you are scrambling, trying to find your insurance cards, your insurance policies, trying to check to see if, this damage or that damage is covered. Do you have a rider that covers firearms, or, that is not the time to be scrambling. So right now, start putting those things together, put them in something that's waterproof. All right. Some people will take their insurance documents, they'll take medical records, birth certificates, and those kinds of things, and they'll just put them in plastic page protectors and put it in a binder. Whatever you do, have it all in one place. All right. And that would be a task, as let's say you have everything else ready. That would be a really important task, just to sit down even tonight and start pulling those things together. Two more little tips here. Do notify people of your plans. So I remember a story about an elderly man in Hurricane Katrina, and no one even knew where he had gone. And he had actually gone up into the attic. Ultimately, that was the only safe place for him. And he had a heart attack. He couldn't get out. No one knew he was there. So if you're planning on taking refuge at someone's home or at a church, whatever, make sure you let people know. Text messages, phone calls, whatever. And Robbie says, yes, Robbie, I saw your comment. In fact, I made a note of it right here. Robbie says, make sure you tell everybody, family and friends, where you're going to be. Here in Kingwood, one thing that happened is we have a number of retirement homes, and some of those are for people who are, medically disabled. And one bizarre thing that happened is that some of these homes had to be evacuated because of flooding, and the relatives of these elderly people didn't know where they were. And sometimes city, governing officials will make decisions, and ultimately those have to be obeyed. So here there was a church that was providing shelter for these elderly people, and then the mayor of Houston just made a proclamation. All of these people from all these different nursing homes and rest homes, we're just going to put them all in one location out of town. Now, can you imagine if it was a parent or a grandparent, and all of a sudden, not only can you not know where they are, but now all of a sudden they're out of town and no one even knows where they are. And of course, goes without saying, your pets. Do not leave your pets behind, because really they present even another layer of complications for anyone who is involved in rescuing people or recovery. It is just one more thing for them to have to deal with. So La Quinta Inns, man, if you're going to stay at a hotel, get your reservations at La Quinta Inn, because you can bring your pets And I don't know what their rules are as far as sizes, but there is no extra charge for having a dog or a pet there. So double check on their website for their exact rules, but I do know that La Quinta is very pet friendly. I know that like Marriott, Courtyard, and some of the Marriotts, they may be pet friendly, but they'll charge something like maybe $100, $115 for a pet. So that's, that gets kind of pricey. But right now, let's just recap. Get your electronics charged. Stay up to date with your laundry. If you can switch right now to using paper plates and paper cups, just so much the better. I mean, that's just one less thing you have to worry about, right? So here we are, we're kind of moving along the path from confusion and feeling vulnerable, afraid. Maybe you've never encountered something like this before. And your goal is to be that survival mom, and I'm talking to moms right now, women, that really does have some plans in place. And by the way, a little off the subject here, don't ever be afraid of the word prepper, because a lot of the TV shows, Doomsday Preppers and those kinds of things, they really cast in a strange light people like me who are just like, I don't want to be scrambling. I don't want to be afraid when something unexpected hits my family in our home. So don't be afraid of that. So if I ever tell you, your prep's in place, or, let's be prepping for, a wildfire, let's be prepping for a financial emergency, just say, okay, we're just going to embrace it, right? We're going to embrace it. So we talked about pets, notifying others, and I have actually 5 printables for you. Can't get them all in one place. So what I'm planning to do is put them all in a PDF for you. I'm going to work on that tonight and tomorrow morning. So and here's a bonus, you can actually get a prepper planner. And I'm going to be putting this prepper planner on my Facebook page, okay, The Survival Mom. Just do a search for that. And I'm going to, let me make sure I get it right here. You can sign up to get the prepper planner, and it's for 2018. But it contains so many simple, basic steps to getting prepared, as well as links to helpful ebooks that you can download for free. It really is, it's free, so you might as well get it. And then once you get that planner and I have your email address, I will send you the PDF that has advice from people who experienced flooding after Harvey a year ago. They've been sharing me their advice. I was going to have for you something called the last minute packing list. So you're packing up, right? But one of your kids has medication they have to take, twice a day. Or you're thinking, gosh, I want to, the last minute, I've got to remember to grab, something out of the freezer or the refrigerator. My last minute packing list will provide you a place to list anything right before you go out the door. Those are things you're going to grab. Things like cash, medication, things like that. And so you'll see when the list is helpful. The third thing you're going to be getting from me, besides the prepper planner, is an evacuation supplies checklist. Do not be overwhelmed by the checklist. It is just a brainstorming in different categories for you. So you'll see things that don't really relate to you, just cross them right off. But I think it'll give you a lot of ideas, whether you're dealing with Hurricane Florence right now, one of the other storms, hopefully they all fizzle out, or something in the future. So I think that's going to be helpful to you. And then an evacuation to-do list. And believe it or not, this list is actually pretty short. So, things like, you want to turn off your, depending on the weather, if you think you're going to flood, turn off your electrical breaker box. But a list of things like that. And then finally, grab and go binder, all the documents that you're going to need to pull in place and have those ready to go. Okay. So I hope that no one here really is dealing with catastrophic damage from this, but I'm open to questions, and I'm going to scroll down, and there will be, we've only been here 20 minutes. There have been a lot of really good suggestions. Robbie says, check on your neighbors, the elderly and the disabled. Absolutely. So just, if you have kids, just send one of the kids over and say, hey, we just wanted to check on you. We're making plans to go, and leave an evacuation. Is someone here going to come for you? Can you make your way out of town in evacuation? Thank you, Robbie. John talks about generator safety. You're absolutely right. Generators can really be a huge, a lifesaver, really, depending on your circumstances, because heat. And I don't know, what are the temperatures right now? What are the daytime temperatures and nighttime temperatures been in the coastal areas of North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia? I haven't checked, but hot weather, and of course it's exacerbated by humidity, that affects elderly, people with chronic health issues, toddlers, pregnant women, and babies the most. One time I was in Chicago for one of the worst heat waves they have ever had. Hundreds and hundreds of people died. And I remember I was at a conference and the speaker said, hey, by the way, there are workers right now standing on the roof hosing down the air conditioning unit, which, huge on one of those big hotels. So it doesn't go out. That's how hot it was. But it was mostly the elderly. If you've ever seen a baby get really, really hot, their bodies aren't yet equipped to sweat and cool down the way ours are. So I haven't seen any temperatures, any comments, I don't think, on the temperatures, but the fact that it's summertime still, midsummer, mid-September, it's still going to be warm. Melanie asked, turn off your water main. No reason to do that, Melanie, and I wouldn't turn off the gas main. Electric, if there are a couple of factors. If the weather is really hot, you may not want to turn off your electricity entirely. You may want to just set for example, your air conditioning, like 85 or something, a really high temperature, just to kind of maintain the airflow in your home. If you think that your home may very well be flooded, turn off the electrical breaker box. Does anyone have a comment about the water main and the gas main? If the problem is, if you turn off the gas main, you can't just turn that on. At least where I live, you can't turn that on by yourself again. So you're going to have to wait for someone from the gas company to come and do that for you. So if anyone has any other insights on that, let me know. Let's see. Going back to John, generator safety, make sure your generator, if you're going to be using one, is, not indoors, that's for sure. And make sure you have extra fuel for that. That actually is one, Carol, good point there. That is one downside of having a generator, is that you're going to have some kind of fuel for it. So, stock up on enough fuel for, your priority, of course, is using that gasoline, that fuel for your vehicle if you have to get out. But if you're depending on a generator, you want to make sure you have the fuel for it. Hey, Dawn, you're welcome. So let's see. Some really good tips here. By the way, this will be recorded, and you can scroll through and read all the different tips. I want to make sure that I'm not missing out on any questions. So John says, never run a generator in a garage. That's right. Carol, if you have to cross a bridge to evacuate at some point, the bridges will close and you can't cross if you wait too long. Good advice. I will never forget, as long as I live, going down Highway 59, just north of Houston, and watching that water just a foot or so from that, that bridge, that overpass. And only hours later, it actually did go over that highway, and it was so powerful, it moved all the cement dividers, and it was amazing. So thank you, Carol, for that. And then Colorado Emergency Prep Radio. Lisa, can you speak to the need to be prepared for the aftermath of the emergency, as businesses can be closed for weeks after, meaning a lot of people are out of work and replenishing supplies might take a lot longer than people might think. Boy. Yeah. That really is the real trick to planning, prepping, and surviving, is what happens afterwards. Yeah, you're going to be able to get through the windstorm, storm damage, the flood. That's the whole immediate crisis. But here what happened is that Harvey hit us at the end of August. And so there was a time frame. In fact, there was Labor Day weekend where hordes of people, they weren't working, they weren't going to school, hordes of people were out helping. And they were, my husband from our church, he was going into houses and mucking out and tearing out sheetrock and carpet and all that kind of stuff. And it was a flurry of activity. But eventually, those people had to go back to school, they had to go back to work, and those whose homes had flooded were just left. And It was a struggle because my doctor, for example, not only was his home terribly flooded, but so was his office. So he did not have a way to work, and his patients didn't have, for months, didn't have, Dr. Weaver to go to, right? So that you're absolutely right. So when you're planning, you want to take care of some of the immediate things that I talked about. But in the back of your mind, start thinking, what if we're out of our home for a month? What if we're out of our home for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months? I think one of the items on my grab and go binder document list is a resume. Take a resume. If you are out of your home for so long that you can't hold on to a job, and I have something to tell you about that, for here in Kingwood, but you may want to have documentation, like a resume. You might want to have letters of recommendation or a copy of your diploma or something, because this is very true. You may have to get a job somewhere else. Now, here is something that was almost like a miracle here. And I really believe this will happen and will be the same for people no matter where Florence hits or future storms to come. The community comes together in an amazing way. Even today, I was on a Facebook page for my town, and someone was describing a family where the husband has cancer and the wife, has to take him to doctor's appointments. She's having a tough time keeping a job. Can anyone help? And just out of the blue, try this organization, or, I can pick up a, inexpensive microwave to help them. So the help came from every direction. I didn't even know Minute Rice had an 18-wheeler that delivered food and gave it away for free until this happened. So HEB and many of the businesses here that were affected, they found other jobs for people in other locations. So yes, people often miss out on work, but the community response can be more than you ever could dream. So, but thank you, Colorado Emergency Prep Radio, otherwise known as Kepper. I don't know your first name. But anyway, Robbie had a great suggestion. Carol says, a good comfort idea, I bake a cake and put coffee in the thermos before a hurricane. That is a fantastic way of setting off, a period of time when everyone else is worried and you're sitting there eating cake and drinking coffee. When I went to the grocery store, I told you earlier, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe I should panic. Maybe I should go to the grocery store. I bought 2 gallons of Bluebell ice cream, and I hardly ever buy ice cream. So figured we kind of celebrate in a way. But that's a good idea. And then Carol says the next morning she has cake and coffee for the neighborhood. We can talk about how to clean up the roads around their small neighborhood. And I love that idea. That's a very creative one. So Melanie says, we learned when there was a fire evacuation where we lived 5 years ago, we already had the important papers, briefcase, medicines, clothes at the ready. But if you have animals, be sure to put them in a cage in the car first. Don't wait too long. One piece of information or advice from the families here in my town, again and again and again and again, they said, don't wait. Don't wait until the last minute. And so many of these people were the ones that had to be rescued by boats. So any other questions? I'm going to scroll up, see if there are any last minute questions. I'm going to be putting a link. Let's see, I don't think I can put a link here for you. I think these comments are only for you or your comments. But I'm going to give you a link that will allow you to get that prepper planner and then the other 5 documents that I have for you. Last minute packing list, the best advice from Harvey families, evacuation supplies checklist, evacuation to-do list, and the grab and go binder list of important documents. All right. So Carol, great comment there. She says that on Pensacola Beach, they have a program for residents. When you buy property on Santa Rosa Island, you present proper documentation to the fire department. They issue you a resident permit that allows you to enter the island after a hurricane. This prevents the need to verify residency after a storm. So I have a feeling that just among the people who are watching this live, the people who are going to be watching the recording, please leave your comments, leave, whatever from your own experience or what you've, great ideas you've heard, leave them right here. And they'll all be in one spot. Linda Loosely, great to see you again. And she says that Myrtle Beach residents are being asked to have a utility bill and ID to return to their property after the storm. So that's really good to know as well. Okay, I'm going to end the broadcast. I'm going to be doing another Facebook Live just in another few days. I'll be notifying you on Facebook and via email. And I do have, I almost forgot, one Facebook, John, I have an article I'm going to be putting up. Let me finish my first thought. But on Thursday morning, I'm interviewing a man who he built his own off-grid cabin and property, and he also travels in an RV much of the year. And so I'm going to interview him on Thursday right here on Facebook Live. So if you're interested and kind of intrigued, how do you transition to living an RV lifestyle, or what are the pros and cons, what expenses involved? I'm interviewing him. His name is Gary Collins on Thursday morning right here. Okay, so thanks, Linda. And then there was a question. John mentioned caution folks about post-disaster relief efforts. If you do need help, your home is flooded, damaged, whatever, do not be shy about signing up with FEMA, Red Cross, but be sure to follow every instruction, read the fine print. It is not an easy process. And those of you who have dealt with FEMA in particular, So there were people here in my town just this last week. They're getting text messages from Red Cross saying you're eligible for $2,000 in financial relief. So honestly, my own experience and observations here is that FEMA and Red Cross, you're going to get more help from churches. You're going to get more help from neighborhood groups than you are from these big, multi-million dollar agencies. But get every bit of help that you can. And John is right. There are a lot of people out there who are scammers. So many instances here in my town of people who hired a contractor to do something and prepaid. Bad idea. The person never showed up or did a really terrible job, halfway job, and disappeared. So I know of a really good article I'm going to put here. It actually is a list of all of the Harvey scams that people experienced here, or at least a lot of them. So I'm going to put that also on my Facebook page for you. All right, I'm going to end the broadcast, and thank you so much for being here. Let's hang in there together. And I will be back on Facebook Live on Thursday morning. And you all have a great evening. Take care.